Hello, welcome to class. Today we'll be talking about how to create atmosphere in our stories. Yesterday we read the story The Hall of the Bulls about Simon and Dan who went to see the ancient cave paintings in France. I don't know if you noticed, but the first two lines of that story created the right atmosphere that the writer wanted the reader to experience. Let's take a look at it. We can see in the first two lines, the cave was dark as Simon and Dan squeezed through the passage. Cold water dripped on them from above, and the air smelt of mold. The only light came from the weak torches strapped to their foreheads. So in only 2 sentences, the writer has started to create an atmosphere so the reader can feel what it's like to be there. What is atmosphere? Well, the atmosphere of a story, or even one scene from a story, is the feeling that we, the reader, get from it, the mood that it creates. The mood could be frightening, it could be exciting, or the writer might want us to feel sad. If you want to create a frightening story, then you cannot just use normal words all the time. You need to use more powerful verbs, some good adjectives and adverbs, and other words that support the atmosphere you want to create. For a frightening story, you could say something slithered across the floor, or something clawed at the door trying to get in. Here we have 2 good verbs. But what about adjectives? The air smelled rotten. A shadowy figure crept down the corridor. Or some adverbs. Cautiously, he edged his way around the sleeping creature. Or suddenly, it woke up. So, choosing the right words is going to help us get the right atmosphere delivered to our readers. Why do we need it? Well, if you want to create a creepy, scary story, but you only use normal words, then you'll end up with something like this. The girl walked up the stairs, opened the door, and went into the castle. There's no atmosphere. We don't know anything about the girl. How is she feeling? What is she thinking? She walked. How did she walk? Quickly, slowly, cautiously? What did the stairs look like? Did the door make a sound? What does the castle look like? Without any description, there's no atmosphere. And worse, your reader might misunderstand, or they might get a different image in their head. You want them to be reading a creepy, scary story, but with no description, they might imagine a completely different castle with a completely different atmosphere. Try this one. The girl trembled with fear as she looked at the old broken doorway. Reluctantly, she slowly made her way, step by unwilling step, towards the dark, shadow-filled castle. Now this second example has a lot of atmosphere because it uses powerful verbs like trembled, and it's got some very good adjectives, well, even simple ones, old and broken doorway. Now we're getting an image of this doorway and the shadow-filled castle. And there's also adverbs to say how she felt, reluctantly, or how she moved, slowly. After that description, your audience should be thinking of a castle more like you want them to. So, Let's have a little practice with this. We've got a simple sentence. The old man sat on the bench. Okay, there's a bench, there's a man, he's old, he's sitting on it, but there's no atmosphere. So we need to describe it with more detail. But if we only describe the man himself, then we're not really describing the whole scene. What we must do is describe the things around him. That way we can make our character react or interact with the environment. This helps the reader to really feel what it's like to be there. Also, with a good description of the setting, we might learn or guess how the character might be thinking or feeling, or even what they might say. The old man sat on the bench. Children were running around playing football on the lush grass, shouting and laughing happily. Now, is it positive or a negative atmosphere? Well, I think this one is a very positive atmosphere. But what words are making it feel positive? Well, the word playing is a positive word. The grass is lush, which is fresh and healthy and clean. Although the children are shouting, they are also laughing, and the adverb, they're doing it all happily. So, the feelings and the atmosphere that this description creates, it's not quiet, is it? It's quite noisy there, but it's very pleasant and positive. We can imagine that this bench must be in a park on a sunny day. Now, because we've now put the old man relaxing on a bench in a park, but with people happily playing around him, we could guess that he's probably thinking, just normal thoughts, happy thoughts. He's feeling content. He's not angry. If he spoke, he'd probably say something nice. He would say good morning to the people walking around him. Here's the second one. The old man sat on the bench. The sky grew darker as rain clouds threatened to spoil his afternoon. Now this time, it's a little different. The first one was very happy. This one, I wouldn't say it's unhappy, but I might say that the man is now looking at the sky and is unsure about what's going to happen. The words that are creating this atmosphere are the sky growing darker. And there are clouds, but not nice white fluffy clouds, but rain clouds. This word is very negative. They threatened to spoil his afternoon. So, 4 words to make it seem very negative in only one sentence. Now, here's one more. The old man sat on the bench. The rush of the traffic drowned his thoughts, making him irritable and more short-tempered than usual. Now, of these 3 different atmospheres, I'd say that this one is the most negative. It seems that this time he's definitely not happy. In fact, I'd say he's quite grumpy or even angry. Which words help to create this effect? The traffic. It uses the verb to rush. It's moving very quickly. And all this noise, and we can imagine too the smoke from the engines, but certainly the noise drowned his thoughts. He can't relax. He can't think clearly. This is making him irritable and annoyed, And look at this, more short-tempered than usual. So usually he is already short-tempered and grumpy. But now, because of all of this noise and smoke around him, I think he's getting really angry. So, we've just looked at this exercise here, which is just the examples. This is on page 1 of your workbooks. Okay, we've looked at that, but what we're going to look at now is the next exercise. This is going to be your first task. It's only 3 sentences long though. We have a sentence. The children looked through the window. Now, you need to choose an atmosphere that you want the reader to feel. And it's up to you. You can ignore the picture. If you want, they could be looking through the window in the middle of the day. It could be bright sunshine outside if you want it to be. Or it could be nighttime. They could be looking at the stars. They could be looking at fireworks. Or it could be another atmosphere, something creepy. They can see some shadowy thing moving in their garden and they don't know what it is. But what you need to do is think of one atmosphere and then write one sentence to continue this sentence of the children looked through the window and then what? Blah, 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 blah. One sentence with some good adjectives, adverbs, and powerful verbs to help us understand how do they feel or what does it feel like to be there. Then do the same but for a different atmosphere. The children look through the window and this time there's a different atmosphere. And then one more sentence. The children look through the window and this time a very different atmosphere again. So remember, don't only describe the children. If you only describe them, you might fail to create enough atmosphere for the reader. So also describe whether it's day or night, whether there's stars, and so on. Help the reader to really feel what it's like to be there. Is it cold outside or is it a hot summer's day? Do not only describe the things that we can see. You must describe something else, either a noise that they could hear. It could be the pleasant chirping of birds in the morning. It could be a strange grunting sound coming from the shadows in the garden. It could be a loud noise coming from downstairs or their mother shouting, calling for them to come for dinner. So it should be another sense, whether it's sound, taste, smell, feel, emotion. Use the right powerful verbs, adjectives, and adverbs to create that atmosphere. Oh, and by the way, even if you describe the character's facial expressions or the way they move, this can help to create the atmosphere. If both of the children are there staring out the window with tears running down their faces, you've described what their face looks like. You didn't say that they were sad, but the reader can understand that they're sad. If they're grinning with big wide eyes, then they must be happy. Now, at this point, I want you to pause the video, go and write your 3 different sentences, one for each different atmosphere that you want to create. Once you've finished, come back and continue playing the video for the next exercise. Okay, so you should have finished writing your 3 sentences for your 3 different atmospheres. Now, the next exercise is where you're going to write 3 sentences, but to describe one atmosphere. Yesterday we read about the Cave of the Bulls, and at the beginning the writer was describing how narrow and cramped and uncomfortable it was trying to get into the cave. But here's a picture of another cave. This is the biggest cave in the world, and this is only one little corner of the cave. This cave is so big you could easily fly a helicopter in there, for example. So not all caves are going to be narrow and cramped and dark. What about another cave? What about this one? Here, imagine a cave. If you stumbled upon a hidden treasure worth millions and millions of dollars, what would it look like? What would it feel like to be there? This is a different cave, a different atmosphere. Or, what would it be like to be standing here? This is a cave under Paris in France. Under Paris, France, hundreds of years ago, many people lived underground, and there are miles and miles and miles of tunnels and rooms. Many of the rooms are filled with skulls and bones of the dead. But what would it feel like to be standing here? Not all caves are completely dark and dry. Many caves are filled with water, and here's one, beautiful one, with lots of light coming in, and it's got a beautiful green lake inside. So, the next task, you're going to describe a cave. To describe your cave, first think, what does it look like, and what does it feel like to be there? And then, before you start writing any sentences, is there a noise that your character can hear in the cave? Now, many caves might have water, so there might be drip, drop, splish, splash. So you could write down those words for your noises. And you can write down as many words as you want that you might use for different noises. If you want it to be a bit creepy, the drip drop sounds would be disturbing and echoing. But if it's a nice cave, then it would be playful splish, splosh, splash sounds. By changing it from disturbing to playful, you've made it positive. Also, how is your character moving? Think of some good verbs and adverbs. Is it a huge cave? So are they walking freely across a big, wide, flat, smooth stone surface? Or are they struggling and climbing over cold, sharp, hard rocks? Write down different things, as many verbs as you can think of, adverbs, and so on, to describe either the things that you can see, smell, taste, feel, etc. Once you've gone round and you've listed as many different words as you can, then consider how you're going to put them into a sentence or 3 sentences. What I'd like you to do is just write on these 6 lines, so maybe say 3 sentences, to describe what does it feel like to be in your cave. Okay. Number 1, don't just copy from the Hall of the Bulls. If you do that, I will send it back to you. You'll have to do it again. Also, anybody who sends me just like 1 or 2 lines, I will send it back. You'll have to do it again. Today, you only have to write 6 sentences, okay? So make sure you do good sentences. Don't be lazy bones, okay? Then, as soon as you've finished, writing your 3 different atmospheres for the girl and boy looking through the window, and your 1 atmosphere in the cave with 3 sentences, send them to me through the Google Classroom. Or if it's class time right now, as soon as you finish, you can come into Zoom and show me your sentences immediately. Then I can give you advice on whether you're doing it right or whether you need to change it. Okay? Oh, and one last thing. In this term, 60% of your scores, your grades, come from the work that you do, your classwork. So remember, when I give you some work like this, you have 3 days to complete it and send it back to me. If you don't do it within 3 days, then the rules are that you'll get a warning and you still have to send it to me. But then your maximum score can only be 70%. Also, after 5 days, if you haven't sent it to me, you will be given a score of 0. Now, you might think, oh, just once, I won't do it. But think about this. If in your first piece of work you got 100%, and the second piece of work you didn't do it and got 0, well, 100 plus 0 divided by 2 is only 50%. So don't miss any of your assignments. Make sure you do them, and if possible, do them as quickly as possible. And finally, for tomorrow's lesson on Zoom, please bring 1 piece of A4 paper, blank paper. We're going to make some cards with it. Okay? If you have any questions, come straight into Zoom and you can ask me anything you like. But until tomorrow, that's all. Bye-bye.